Hello, everybody. My name is Tisher, a professor with UMGC, and I've been here for a long time teaching math, computer science, and statistics. And I am very, very happy to bring computer science programming to you. And the language that we're going to use is Python. And so this is for CMSC 105, which is titled Introduction to Problem Solving and Algorithm Design. And Python is a great, relatively new language that we're going to use to solve problems and design algorithms. All right. Okay, so what exactly are we going to do? Well, first of all, the course outcomes are um, we will analyze and explain the behavior of simple programs involving fundamental programming constructs, and I'll talk about those in just a bit. And next, we're going to modify and expand programs that use conditional and iterative control structures and features. So conditional is like when you have a if, all right? And iterative is something you repeat until a certain situation. And one common one is called the while. So while this is true, do this. We'll also create algorithms for solving problems, and all an algorithm is just a step-by-step procedure to do something. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be mathematical. It can be like how to cook hamburgers for some or something like that, or how to the best way to clean something. All right. Step one, do this. Step two, do this, etc. On YouTube, there's a lot of YouTube videos that talk about how to cut open certain vegetables, and those have to be done in certain steps as well. So it's very interesting to see uh, those kind of things, like how to cut a durian or how to cut a mango. There's certain set steps for that. Okay, then we'll also design, implement, test, debug, and document programs that use basic data types. So one example of a data type is an integer. So the computer needs to know what kind of data type it is because it's going to store whatever it is you're telling it to. And there are certain ways to store integers and certain ways to store other data types that we'll talk about in our class. We'll also have simple I/O. I/O stands for input output. Input is when the computer asks you to enter something. So the computer will wait for you to enter something, and that's called input. Or maybe you want the computer to read from a file uh, that you put something into the file. That's also input. An output can be like to the screen or to the printer or to another file. And we'll describe and use effective strategies in debugging and testing. So usually the program may not work, and so there's certain ways to debug and test the program. I have certain tricks myself that we'll share in class. So come to class and see what that's going to be all about. So to expound upon these objectives of the class, or course outcomes rather, here are the different topics. So again, we'll talk about fundamental concepts of algorithms or programming, variables, and maybe you thought a variable was just for algebra or math class. And so we're going to see in just a bit how a variable, what the function of a variable is in programming. We are talking input output. We'll also about arithmetic operators like plus, minus. We'll also deal with Boolean expressions. A Boolean expression is either true or false. So like for example, 4 less than 5. Well, that's true, right? So that's so 4 less than 5 itself is a Boolean expression. We'll also talk about comparative and logical operators, the and, or, and not. So those will be very helpful. Decision structures is when you have the if there that I mentioned earlier. Repetition, we have the while, and also the for. The for is very useful whenever we talk about repetition or iterative structures. Okay, repetition, iterative, same thing. All right, functional decomposition and modularity, that's very interesting. That's when you want to try to proofread the program and make sure it does what it does, and a lot of testing. And So make sure it works for every single possible case. Okay, now functions, okay? That's another popular thing in computer science and programming. So let me show you an example of a function. All right, we'll let x equal a person, and maybe you've seen this notation before. This is f of x. Um, f of x is, in this case, we'll define f of x, which stands for a function of x, to be the birthplace of x. So, for example, x is Tisher, and I was born in Farmington, Missouri. Now, a function is a construct to where you have exactly one answer that comes out. Now, it can get complicated because a function can give you two answers or three answers, but we're not going to get that complicated. So we're going to try to keep it simple as we can. So keeping it simple, and then keeping it simple in the beginning is usually best, and then we can make it complicated later on. All right, so everybody has exactly one birthplace, and so anytime you have a situation where there's only one outcome or one answer, then we usually use a function to model that. Okay. All right. So nobody has two birthplaces or more than two birthplaces. So a birthplace is a good example of a function. Everybody just has one birthplace. So that's a good example of a function. And so Tisha was born in Farmington, and Gabrielle was born in the Philippines, and Kiara was born in California. Now, can you have other people born in California? Well, of course, right? So we can have maybe we could have a Kathy was also born in California. So we can have two things on the left go to one thing on the right. All right, so we're going to see how a function is very crucial and very important in the field of programming. And we'll talk about strings. These are very exciting. So a string can be thought of as a word, and maybe you want to know whether or not a word or a set of words or a sentence is a palindrome. So a palindrome is a string that reads the same backwards and forwards. And by the way, a string can be like a word or words or phrase or a sentence or a paragraph even. So a palindrome is a string that reads the same backwards and forwards. So examples are level, civic, and mom. Uh, so if you look at level, if you go backwards, it's still Level going from right to left, right? And civic, same thing. If you start from the end and go to the left, that still says CIVIC. Okay, MOM, same thing, mom, right? So one example that's not a palindrome would be like that here, right? So that if you go from right to left, it's TAHT, which is not the same thing as that. Okay, so it's interesting to figure out which words or which strings are palindromes and which one are not. And even it'd be interesting to find the probability of having a word in our language that is a palindrome. I'm sure it's probably less than 1%, but it'd be interesting to find out. And then the last thing we'll cover in CMSC 105 is the idea of a list. So maybe you want to store a list, like a list of maybe a list of your bills and the amounts you owe, and maybe a list of expenses, or uh, maybe a list of your children. So anytime I want to store something in a list, we have a way to do that in Python. All right. Now, maybe wondering, how do I get a good grade in CMSC 105? Okay, so we're going to have 8 discussions, and we'll do these discussions in class. All right. So please come to class and find out what these discussions are going to be. All right. So then we'll also have 8 quizzes. Now, the quizzes are online. You can take them anytime. And I think you get 2 chances of getting the right answer. All right. So those will be online. You can take those anytime, and there's no due date, no penalty. And we'll have 7 programming assignments. All right. All right. There's also going to be a final project. And for the final project is usually bigger than a regular programming assignment. And so for that, I usually like to put people in groups, and and then each group can turn in one final project for one grade to be shared by all. All right, and that's basically all for the class. All right, so I hope that this was useful to you, and I hope this was exciting for you. And so again, thank you for signing up for CMSC 105. I look forward to working with you soon. And by the way, maybe you see my name there, Tisher. Maybe you've never seen that name before because that name is very rare. All right. And I forgot to talk about my name. So originally my name had a C in it, and Tischer is actually German. Tisch is the German word for table, and a washer is someone who washes. A fighter is someone who fights. So a tisher is a person who tables, not the waiter or waitress kind of tabling, but instead a table maker. And maybe some people were wondering, why is the C in the name if we really don't pronounce it right? So we don't say Tischa or Tiska or anything like that. So maybe you're wondering, why is the C in there if we don't pronounce it? And so one of my ancestors back then decided just to drop the name, and there's the abbreviated version of my name. It's like Fisher, except instead of F, it's instead of F, it's like Fisher, except instead of F, it's a T. All right. So again, my name is Tisher, and again, thank you for signing up for the course, and I look forward to working with you soon. Thank you.